Alrighty then, this is my second time doing this kind of a project, so hopefully this one will even be better than my last one. Yeah, I really enjoyed doing the last one, so here we are. Project number 2 of Tech Connections. Okay, today's topic of conversation: Hiroshima and Nagasaki, particularly the bombings in World War II on those two key Japanese cities. So, on August 6th and August 9th, the two Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were both hit by atomic bombs. There's been a huge debate for decades and decades about whether these bombings were justified, whether they should have been war crimes, or if America should have been punished for dropping 2 nuclear bombs on Japanese cities. That's why I'm here, to fuel this debate and give my opinion on the matter. So one of the things that had been going on throughout Japanese cities prior to the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings was that there were these fire raids going on. And what the fire raids were is they were just Americans constantly bombing the crap out of these Japanese cities. That accounted for approximately 240 to 900,000 deaths. These deaths, however, occurred over a 3-year period.
That is so good.
Anyways, just prior to these bombings, the Germans had just signed, what's it called? Yes, the Instrument of Surrender is what they signed on May 8th, 1945. And this was basically a document just stating that the war was over between Germany and the rest of Europe. Also prior to this, there were approximately, generalizing here, there was approximately 400,000 American deaths in World War II prior to this bombing. So, yeah. Also, the Americans, British, and Canadians were all working in collaboration on a program called the Manhattan Project, named after the place that it was originated from, Manhattan. What this Manhattan Project's role in the war was just to research nuclear weaponry. Not so much nuclear weaponry, but research how to create nuclear weaponry, like turn the splitting of an atom into a deadly weapon. Despite being called the Manhattan Project, the headquarters was actually in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Anywho, the first bomb dropped by the Americans was known as Little Boy. The first bomb dropped was 9,600 pounds. That's heavy. Like, that's a good chunk of meat falling from the sky. Metal. Definitely metal. Not meat. Metal. This Little Boy was dropped on the city of Hiroshima, causing 160,000 deaths.
Bam! Nighttime.
Anyways, the second atomic bomb dropped on the city of Nagasaki was nicknamed the more appropriate nickname Fat Man. This Fat Man contained as much power as 75 million dynamite sticks. That's like 75 million dynamite sticks. Yeah. That's a lot. Despite having approximately 50% more power, Fat Man killed about half as many people in the less densely packed city of Nagasaki opposed to Hiroshima. Okay, so to put Hiroshima and Nagasaki into perspective, think of the Blitz. The Blitz was a German bombing on the city of London and places around London. But the Germans were charged for war crimes on this Blitz. Around 43,000 people died in this Blitz. Now the Americans attacked the Japanese with these 2 nuclear bombs in 2 days. The Blitz lasted 57 days. In 3 days, actually. In 3 days, the Americans killed 240,000 people. I can see why the debate would stir there about whether this was a war crime or whether it was justified. One question that many critics seem to raise over and over again when they're talking about the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings is why the civilians? Why would they attack strategically the civilian population? Why not wipe out their military force over the air? Well, that's a question that we can never have answered now. Another question I would have to ask the American government back in 1945 would be, was this too quick of a reaction? Did you not think this through well enough before you just killed hundreds of thousands of people? Like, that's huge. That's massive. I mean, we're still talking about it today. That shows the impact of these events on not just the American population, but human civilization as a whole. Another debate being tossed around from side to side of whether this was a war crime was the development of Japan's nuclear program, whether or not they had as developed a nuclear program as the Manhattan Project. The Japanese state that their nuclear program was very, how would I say it? Underdeveloped. That was the word I was looking for, right there. Underdeveloped. Their nuclear program was very underdeveloped. That's what the Japanese say. But the Americans say that they were very, very close to developing their own nuclear bomb. So there's another debate being tossed around. Another thing that may make people believe that this was a war crime is the long-lasting effects of radiation. So the radiation, you can still feel, not so much feel the high levels of radiation in Japan, but if you were to test the soil in Japan, I'm sure there'd be still a high level of radiation. And there have been many cases of birth defects, and even after these 240,000 people died, there was still more people dying from radiation poisoning. So that could be another thing that would call it a war crime. So I've mostly discussed the things that are against the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. Now, what about the things that were for the negative? What are pro Nagasaki Hiroshima points?